If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. The San Francisco 49ers will win the Super Bowl in the 6th plus 6th plus 6th state to join the Union on February 9th, 2025, and will become the third team to win 6 Super Bowls, which hints at 3 sixes. San Francisco points to Pope Francis, the first of 2 antichrists in Bible prophecy. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on, in case you can't find me later. All right, welcome. In this video, I will explain how the prophetic signs that occurred on September 15th, including the second assassination attempt of President Trump, are prophetic signs from God that reveal the dates that it is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die on September 21st, Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on September 25th. These signs also reveal that the day after her death on the 26th, President Trump will die from a heart attack on the same day as it is predicted will be Jimmy Carter's funeral at the National Cathedral. And these signs on September 15th, including the second assassination of President Trump, reveal the date it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. And these signs on September 15th, including the second assassination of President Trump, the second assassination attempt, reveal two mega tsunamis that will hit each of the coasts, the two coasts, the west and east coast, on November 23rd. All right, first of all, stay tuned. This is a very, very interesting video, a very important video, an extremely profound video. And we would expect that to be the case. This is the only video, the only place where you will hear the true intended meaning, prophetic sign that was the second assassination attempt of President Trump. Now, the dates that I just listed, September 21st, September 25th, and 26th, this video was originally recorded before September 21st. The way in which God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, it is an interconnected web of signs, and it is a big picture of signs, and the more pieces of the puzzle that come together, the clearer the understanding is. God was, in fact, pointing to September 21st. The signs that occurred on September 21st are explained in the absolute must-watch Thriller video with a thumbnail with Michael Jackson dancing with zombies. Okay? That September 21st was a very important step in the trail of signs that revealed through Michael Jackson, who was partners with Jimmy Carter. Long story, it's explained they were partners in immunization. They met together on a date that was the 5th of May, the date 5/5. Michael Jackson, Jackson 5. The news on September 21st, one of the 5 kids alleged to have been assaulted by Michael Jackson is in the news after his final payment of $500,000, and this is just scratching the surface. But anyway, they got together because of immunization for kids. Anyway, all of this led to a revealed adding 5 days to September 21st to get to September 26th, one of these dates that I just mentioned that are pointed to through the second assassination attempt of President Trump. Now it is clear that September 26th is not the day of Carter's funeral and the day of President Trump's death, but the date of Carter's death. The rest of this video will explain these dates and what God was communicating through September 15th, the date of the second assassination attempt of President Trump. And the reason why God does all of this is in order to tell stories. Because if God were to simply tap someone on the shoulder and say, you know, tell the world that this is going to happen on such and such date, it would be pretty much meaningless. But it is through these steps in the trails and this big picture of signs with the interconnections between the signs. In fact, the full intended meaning of any of the prophetic signs cannot be properly understood without their connections and context with the other prophetic signs. And it is because God is able, through these connections and steps in the trails of signs, to tell stories that reveal extremely important knowledge and information that everyone needs to know. And that's why the wise person will recognize when the prediction comes to pass that they need to watch every minute of every Carter and Paul Simon video on this channel. That's the purpose of the prediction. The reason why God has given the prediction is to confirm all of the other analysis that was leading up to the prediction. That's the purpose of it. Hopefully I've been clear on this. All right, the last couple of minutes were recorded on September 24th, and September 26th ended up being another step in the trail of signs leading to the death of Jimmy Carter. I won't explain it here, but one of the signs was Hurricane Helene, which hit Florida, the 27th state to join the Union, and 27 is 3 times 9. In other words, it hit the 3 times 9th state, and this date, September 26th, is 39 days before the 309th day of the calendar year, on which it is predicted that the 39th president, Jimmy Carter, will die. Now, the other videos will explain why and how Hurricane Helene is relevant to all of this. All right, so November 4th ended up being another step in the trail of signs. And this was the day that was definitely in an overwhelming way being pointed to by the Lord for Jimmy Carter. And in God's signs, Jimmy Carter is king symbolism, and that's why on this day we had the death of the king of music, Quincy Jones. Now I didn't make that phrase up. It is in the culture. People call him the king of music. Furthermore, he is most known for assisting Michael Jackson's career, transitioning him from a child star into an adult star and king of pop. Okay, so Quincy Jones is most known for the best-selling album of all time, for example, Thriller, which made Michael Jackson the king of pop. And anyway, this was the day of his death. There's so much to be said regarding the relevance of Quincy Jones here, but I've just said just enough to give you an understanding of how it's relevant, to prove that it's relevant. And also, his death at the age of 91 revealed adding 13 days to the date. It is now predicted that Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. 91 is the 13th triangular number in a triangle of numbers. The last number in the 13th row is 91. There are many other reasons for how Quincy Jones his death revealed adding 13 days, which is explained in the Quincy Jones video. I haven't titled it or given it a thumbnail yet, but there will be a Quincy Jones video. But also this same explanation is in 4 other videos, the really long videos in which the first 2 hours or so is the same introduction that needs to be watched at least once. And so anyway, November 17th also is the day that Quincy Jones will receive his first Oscar award posthumously. Okay, so that's also what was revealed through the death of Quincy Jones. Coincidentally, he was just about to receive his first Oscar award on November 17th, which is 13 days after November 4th. And so let's begin first to prove that these predictions are being made ahead of time. As we can see here, this email is composed on September 16th. The date that this video is posted also proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me. All right, it was the second assassination attempt of the 45th president. The reciprocal of 45 is 0.0222. This is very important. This is the reason why the number 45 is so important in God's signs, and it is the reason why Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, is the 45th president. This is an extremely important number. For what I am saying, and furthermore, as I just alluded to, this is rhyming together. This is the second assassination attempt of the 45th president, and the number 222 is hidden within the number 45. And this hints at the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ. And also the second presidency of the Antichrist, Barack Obama, who Trump has been trumpeting before he was even elected in 2016. In fact, his rise in politics began really with him calling out the Antichrist, trumpeting the Antichrist. Well, okay, so trumpet was about to put on the fifth hole when the shooter was taken down, which means he had just finished the fourth hole and was playing on the fifth hole, and this hints at 45. So this is a confirmation of the significance of 45 and the assassination attempt on the 45th president. As well, the shooter in his sniper's nest was spotted 400 yards away from the from trumpet while he was on the fifth hole. And this too hints at 45. Another confirmation. Now, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required, and this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. Now, 45 is the 9th triangular number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 45th row, the 9th row is 45. And this assassination attempt of the 45th president, as he just finished the fourth hole and was playing the fifth hole, occurred in the 9th plus 9th plus 9th state, the 27th state to join the Union. This incident in the 9th plus 9th plus 9th state occurred 11 days before Trump's predicted assassination and death on September 26th. This hints at the warning of judgment that God trumpeted on 9/11, including through trumpet, who trumpeted into Channel 9 News in Manhattan on 9/11. That was a prophetic sign. Trumpeting, calling into Channel 9 News. From the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and it is the most important number in God's big picture of prophetic signs. On 9/11 in 2001, it was 2 times 110 stories that collapsed. The reciprocal of the 45th president is 0.0222, and this hints at 2 times 210 stories. Okay, we could actually write this as 0.022. And that, in reverse order, would be 220, which is what is hinted at with 2 times 110 stories. It was Flight 11 that struck the first tower of the towers that looked like a giant 11 in the 11th state. 11 days from the second assassination attempt of the 45th president, ninth triangular number, in the 9 plus 9 plus 9th state, points to the 2 planes and 2 towers and Flight 11 on 9/11. Okay, so we're talking again about an 11 days connection from these 9s here, because the 45s allude to or hint at the 9th triangular number, and it occurred in the 9th plus 9th plus 9th state. So that hints at 9/11, but on 9/11 we had 2 planes and 2 towers and Flight 11, and so that's also a hint at the 220 and 0.22. All right, now I'll just say another thing here. The reason why on 9/11 2 towers that were 110 stories collapsed is because 110 hints at, well, first of all, it hints at Joshua. And Trump is a type for Joshua in the Bible, who led the Hebrews, or the Israelites, around the city of Jericho before they blew trumpets, and then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. In archaic English, the word trump means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. Now, Joshua led the Israelites into the promised land. He died in the Bible at the age of 110. Okay, and he led the Israelites into the promised land on the date 110, the 10th day of the first month in the Hebrew calendar, which also hints at 110. Also, Jesus officially arrived into Jerusalem as the King of the Jews on the date 110. Which also hints at, or which is also symbolized by 110. And so 2 towers of 110 stories hints at the second coming, because the first coming was symbolized by the number 110, and so therefore the second coming is symbolized by the number 220, which is 2 times 110, and that's why 2 times 110 stories. Okay, so on 9/11, 47 floors of Building 7 collapsed. The walls of security of Jericho collapsed after they marched around them for 7 days and blew 7 trumpets. Okay, but 47 floors collapsed. By the way, 47 hints at, 4 plus 7 equals 11. There's so many 11s in the 9/11 events, including this, 4 plus 7. It's also 40 plus 7, and in the account of Noah's flood, there was a 7 days warning followed by 40 days of increasing floodwaters. Well, okay, so on 9/11, 47 floors collapsed of Building 7, and that was after the 2 towers collapsed. And then the shooter in the second assassination, which is why after the 2 towers, the shooter in the second assassination attempt used an AK-47 style rifle. Trump is predicted to die from a heart attack on the same day of the assassination attempt of Trumpet, while he was on the 5th hole of a golf course in the 9 plus 9 plus 9th state. A member of the Jackson 5 music group, died from a heart attack. His brother, Michael Jackson, died at the age of 50 from a heart attack after having taken a pointy thing. G5, okay, so you see that Trump is predicted to die from a heart attack, but on this day, he was playing on the 5th hole, and on that day, the member of the Jackson 5 died from a heart attack. His brother Michael Jackson died at the age of 50 from a heart attack after taking a pointy thing. G5000 in the Greek Strong's Bible Concordance is the word that means 4,000. Michael Jackson's death at the age of 50 was exactly 4,000 days before Pentecost, which literally means 50th day in the Hebrew calendar, when the rare crossover storm, Tropical Storm Cristobal. By the way, a crossover storm is when the storm crosses from the Pacific into the Gulf of Mexico in the Atlantic. Cristobal means follower of Christ who died on the cross, and that's where one is to follow him in a sacrifice of their life, something that the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians don't get and appreciate. Hit the 9 plus 9 plus 9th state with 50 miles per hour winds and spawned a tornado that knocked a sign, a literal sign, up against an evangelical church in Columbia County. That was a literal sign that was a sign against the sign that was knocked up against the church many yards away. In Columbia County, Columbia symbolizes America, the name Columbia. This was a sign against the church, the evangelical church, the American evangelical church. For what I just said, which is for not following Jesus and bearing their cross, as Jesus said, and not dying the self, as Jesus said one needs to do in order to produce fruit. And Jesus said to be born again, being born again was necessary, which implies a death, which implies a sacrifice of oneself, which is where one follows Jesus, because that's where he went. But that's way too tough of a message to preach in an evangelical church, where preachers preach for money, which Jesus forbid, and Jesus also forbid teachers, because if the preachers were to do such a thing, there would be no one in the church the following week. Which is why Jesus is very, very angry with the American evangelical church. But he loves whom he reproves. The American church is the Church of Laodicea. For more on this, look up the Church of Laodicea in chapter Revelation 3. Okay, so this is in turn. So here we have Michael Jackson dying at the age of 50 with an exact number of days that hints at 5,000, as I explained, to Pentecost, which means 50th day. And on that day, the storm engendered 50 mile per hour winds and knocked the sign against the church. And that was in turn exactly 50 weeks before Pentecost in 2021. And Pentecost, again, literally means 50th day. And the day that Phil Mickelson, as in Michael Jackson, won the PGA Championship golf tournament at the age of 50. The golf course was located next to the ocean in the location that the path of totality of the eclipse exited, the one in 2017. And this win of Phil Mickelson's at the age of 50 was exactly 82 weeks after Tiger Woods' 82nd win on the golf course in Japan. In this golf course in Japan that God pointed to through prophetic flooding and much more, which is explained in other videos, was the only location in the world, is the only location in the world that the microbe exists that is responsible for this. Begins with an IVER and ends with an MECTIN, which is God's cure for the CVD disease, which is why God pointed to all of these golf courses. And we are ultimately talking about here the assassination attempt of Trump on a golf course. That's why all of this ties together. But it also tied together through the death of the member of the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson, who died at the age of 50. As I just explained with all the other 5s and 50s, you get the idea here. God is once again, I've explained this many times before, but God is once again pointing to his cure for the CVD disease, which can't be allowed to be the cure by the corrupt machine, because the pointy thing, which is a thing that Michael Jackson died from, which is symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing, because the emergency, I'm not going to say the words, permission for the thing in an emergency would not have been provided. Technically, it wouldn't have been allowed had there been an alternative. The emergency permission is only allowed to be in effect when there is no other alternative. And so that's why the propaganda against the cure for the CVD disease from God. And believe me, I know far better than you the reason for these predictions from God. It is to prove what I have just said. Make no mistake. God pairs 9, 23, and 44. Tito equals 4 times 4 times 4 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. By the way, the pointy thing is also what is the purpose of this prediction that is from God. The reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove the things that I've just said, including what is the cure for the CVD disease, all right? And also that this thing is the mark of the Antichrist. In its current form, it does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship or a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine. Make no mistake, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove this. Make sure you watch the 23 church signs video on this channel if you are a Christian and you are confused at this point because you believed this doctrine of dispensation, but also the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy that tells them that this couldn't possibly be the mark of the Antichrist are answered in the must-watch snake bite video on this channel. All right, but anyway, regardless, the point is that the prediction will prove what I am saying, and that is the purpose of this prediction that is from God. Okay, now God pairs 9, 23, and 44 together in his signs because the Antichrist became the president in 2009, the 44th president, and he is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. That's just the scratching the surface of the reasons for 9, 23, and 44. These are the main numbers that God uses to confirm his signs and connections. And the reason why I know this is that I've been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 6 years. And again, as I said, the way in which God's signs works is that it works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together. Okay, so Tito, is a kind of an unusual name, and that's a hint, a clue that God would, that he is using his name to for this purpose, for converting it into a numeric value, which is 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, and I know that too. I've been studying his big picture of signs long enough to know that he often uses these peculiar, unusual names in order to get us to go to look up the numeric value of the name. Okay. Tito Jackson and his brothers are known for having grown up at 2300 Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. What a coincidence. That's another thing that God does. He uses coincidences to get us to pay attention in his signs. So the Jackson 5 grew up on Jackson Street, and it's a coincidence. They didn't, name their family after Jackson, and they didn't move to Jackson Street because they were named Jackson. But not only that, it's 2300 Jackson Street, and that's the number that God uses to identify the Antichrist. And what a coincidence that the initials MJ, Michael Jackson, equal 23 in simple English gematria. All right? Now, 19, the number 19, is the 4 plus 4th prime number. The assassination attempt of Trump on a golf course and Tito's death is 19 days before October 4th and the symbolic beginning of the Antichrist period, Revelation 9/11 day. Okay, that's the day in which something symbolic will happen. It'll be the beginning of the demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm. There's going to be a zombie pandemic, a mass demonic possession of people that have taken the pointy thing, 5G, which will be facilitated by 5G frequencies. It will also be the beginning of Revelation chapter 9 and Revelation chapter 9:11. And all the demons coming from the bottomless pit. It'll also be the symbolic beginning of demons pretending to be aliens, and at some point the Pope will announce that they have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world, thus making him ruler over governments overnight, and on, okay? Now that day, the symbolic beginning of it, because, I'm not saying all of these things are going to happen on that day, but there's going to be something that will happen that will be the symbolic beginning of it, and that will be October 4th. By the way, this is also the Seven Thunders Day, for those that know what I'm talking about in the book of Revelation. So that's 19 days after Tito died from a heart attack and the second attack, the assassination attempt of Trump on a golf course. Okay, now, 19 is also symbolic of 9/11, because through the 9/11 events, God pointed to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 10, and 9 plus 10 equals 19. And of course, 9/11 just hints at, 19 also just hints at 9/11. But it also hints at Revelation 9/11. Okay, and so 19 days later, we get Revelation 9/11 day, is what I'm saying. Indiana, which is where Tito was born and where the Jackson 5 grew up, is the 19th state to join the Union. Gary, Indiana, is equal to 51 in simple English gematria. 51 is 3 times 17, and the 317th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word that means unwillingly, by compulsion, by force. This is a description of the mark of the Antichrist, which will be a test of faith for the quote-unquote Christians to not take it. Okay, and so this points at the CVD thing with the mark of the Antichrist. The shooter, and by the way, shooters and SHOTs are also symbolic of the thing. The things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the thing that comes out of things and goes into people, the mark of the Antichrist. Okay, so the shooter is said to be obsessed with Ukraine. The media is talking about how he is obsessed with the issue of the Ukraine war. The reason prophetically for the Ukraine war, there's a couple of main ones. One, it identifies the 44th president as the Antichrist because just prior to the beginning of the war, the first leader, as in the first Jewish leader of Ukraine, which hints at the first black president, had just turned 44 years old. And so for the first year of the war, the prophetic first year of the war, when this guy was making the rounds around the world speaking, he was 44 years old. And also, at the time of the beginning of the war, before the exodus, before the evacuation, there were 44 million people living in Ukraine. Another prophetic thing, though, about Ukraine is that God used this and is using this to point to what was going on and is going on prior to the war, which is the U.S.-funded bio-LABSs. Okay, because the thing was developed in Ukraine. That's correct. Okay? The prediction being made in this video will prove what I am saying. Now, so that's why this shooter is obsessed with Ukraine. The thing was developed, as I just said, in the U.S.-funded bio weapons LABSs in Ukraine. And Ukraine is 79 in simple English gematria, and 79 is the 22nd prime number. 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the book of Ezekiel, and it would have been a Tav mark. The Tav letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the last and 22nd letter in the alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Okay, that's one reason why the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22. Okay, and so Ukraine is 79, which is the 22nd prime number in simple English gematria, and 22, okay. And so this second assassination attempt of the 45th, as in 0.022, president. Okay, So and he was trying. The guy that was obsessed with Ukraine was trying to assassinate tried to do the second assassination of the 0.022 president. Okay, the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. In God's signs, Jimmy Carter is symbolic of Methuselah. That's explained in the Carter videos, which is one of the Carter videos is this video, of course. And arguably the most important one, especially for this explanation, is the Carter funeral video. Furthermore, it's the only one of the Carter videos that is talking about the prophetic significance of the funeral, which is the big thing. So make sure you watch that video. But of course, when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that they need to watch every minute of the Carter videos. Okay, so anyway, what I was saying here is that Carter is symbolic of Methuselah. Carter is predicted to die, and the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. Therefore, when Carter dies, okay, so Carter is predicted to die 2 + 2 + 2 days after the second assassination attempt of the 45th, as in 0.022 president. I should say 0.222, as in 2 + 2 + 2 days. Trump was on the 5th hole, and a member of the Jackson 5 died from a heart attack, and 5 days after the predicted death of Carter is the predicted date of Carter's funeral, and the day it is predicted that Trump will die from a heart attack. The shooter in the second assassination attempt was in between the 5th and 6th holes, and there were 56 passengers on the second plane that hit the second tower. All right, I'll read that again. The shooter in the second assassination attempt was in between the 5th and 6th holes, and there were 56 passengers on the second plane that hit the second tower. By the way, 56 is 7 + 7 × 7, which is 3 sets of 7, which is what the Israelites enacted before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment of Jericho. And on 9/11, 7 × 7 × 7 firefighters died. Exactly. 7 × 7 × 7. When the towers collapsed, as in the walls of security that collapsed on Jericho in God's judgment. Also, the second assassination attempt of Trump was on his golf course next to the Atlantic Ocean, 2 days after trumpeted next to the Pacific Ocean on his golf course. Okay? This is amazing. We have these, and that was also an extremely prophetic sign. On September 13th, 2 days before the assassination attempt of Trump on the golf course on the East Coast, Trump was trumpeting from his golf course on the West Coast. I'll explain that sign in another video. Okay, and it was 2 days apart, and it was a second assassination attempt. Okay, so this too hinted at the warning of judgment, destruction, eclipse that traversed over the nation from coast to coast, that exited over the location of the golf course on Pentecost in 2021. Which I just talked about. Phil Mickelson's win on the golf course is right on the coast, and it is where the path of totality exited the U.S. But we have here a coast-to-coast sign, and these coast-to-coast signs are symbolic of the path of totality that went over the nation from coast to coast that was a warning of judgment in 2017. This is also, by the way, why Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on a flight from coast to coast. She will depart Los Angeles, and her flight will be on its way to Washington, D.C. These also are ultimately pointing to the flight paths of the planes that were hijacked on 9/11. The other big judgment warning. These coast-to-coast signs. These are signs that communicate judgment, destruction for the nation. Okay, and again, these two Trump golf course signs are 2 days apart, and it is the second assassination attempt. So the 2 days between the two golf courses and the second assassination attempt is 24 plus 24 hours. G2424 in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word Jesus. Jimmy Carter hints at JC, his initials, which equals or hints at Jesus Christ. The second assassination attempt of the 45th, as in 0.0222, president on his golf course by a shooter 400 feet away from the 45th president, who was on the fifth hole, which hints at 45, which hints at 0.0222, was 2 days after the 45th president, as in 0.222, trumpeted on his golf course on the other coast. And this second assassination attempt is 2 plus 2 plus 2 days before the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. The name Jimmy Carter is equal to 45 plus 45 plus 45 in simple English gematria. And God frequently repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. What is the symbolic meaning of 45? It's 0.0222. And this death of Jimmy Carter, who hints at 45 plus 45 plus 45, as in 0.222 plus 0.2022 plus 0.0222, will be 2 plus 2 plus 2 days after the second assassination attempt, which was 2 days after the 45th president trumpeted from the other coast. It's amazing. Now, Carter is symbolism for Methuselah, who is symbolism for the flood. Because again, the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction, and Methuselah died at the time of the flood, Noah's flood. 2 days after trumpeted from his golf course on the Pacific Ocean, was Trumpet's second assassination attempt on his golf course next to the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the Atlantic Ocean second attempt on the golf course is 1,656 hours, which hints at Noah's flood, because from Adam to the time of Noah and his flood and the death of Methuselah is 1,656 years. And so this attempt of assassination at the Atlantic coast on the golf course is 1,656 hours before it is predicted that 2 mega tsunamis, as in 2 mega tsunamis, will hit the 2 coasts of America on November 23rd, 2024. God has confirmed this. This was already known prior to this. I didn't just think to add 1,656 hours. It was known already that this would be the day of the asteroid that will trigger these mega tsunamis that will hit both coasts. And that's why Trump's trumpeting from both coasts on his golf courses connect so profoundly to the day it is predicted that the 2 mega tsunamis will hit both coasts. And again, as I was saying, the 2 golf courses signs are about this warning of judgment or destruction for the nation because of these signs that involve coast to coast. On this same day, on September 15th, 2024, New Orleans Saints Alvin Kamara scored 4 touchdowns as the Saints, New Orleans Saints, who won Super Bowl 44, scored 44 points to beat the Dallas Cowboys 44-19. And it was in Dallas. In the opening drive of the game, the Saints marched 40 plus 40 yards downfield, and it wasn't 81, it was 40 plus 40, 80, downfield for a touchdown. God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. This was the 3rd regular season game in a row that the Saints, who won Super Bowl 44, scored 44 points. That's in this news story. They talk about how this was the 3rd game in a row that they had scored 44 points. The name Alvin, okay, so before we continue here, this game was in Dallas. And it was the Saints that beat the Dallas Cowboys. God is using this city Dallas in his signs to point to the Nicolaitan church, because this is the symbolic capital of the evangelical church. And it's not just me that says that, the mainstream media says that. And this is the place of the seminary schools that churn out the nation's pastors, which Jesus hates. Jesus hates the Nicolaitans and their doctrine. He says this twice in the book of Revelation. Now, people will say online and stuff that it's a mystery who Jesus is talking about when he's talking about these Nicolaitans. There's some speculation, but no one really knows. Now I ask you, he says he hates the Nicolaitan doctrine and the Nicolaitans, and he says it twice, and that he's coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those who teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. Okay? That's what he's saying. He's saying he's coming. Future tense. Has he come yet? Is the book of Revelation about the end times? Well, yes. The letters that he wrote to the churches, are they only for the churches in Asia Minor in the first century? No. It's allegory. It's a message to our time, primarily. First and foremost, it's meant for us in this time that we are living in, more than it is meant for the churches in Asia Minor. It's a message. It's allegory. It's symbolism. It's not, I'll just repeat myself. It's meant more for us than it was for the churches of Asia Minor. Therefore, because Jesus said it twice even if he said it one time, do you think it would be a mystery for everyone? Or would he have hidden something in this? Because he doesn't want to say things explicitly. That's what he's doing in this book, the book of Revelation. It's, if you will, a non-explicit book. It's full of allegory for people to interpret who have wisdom. Those that are saying, well, we just can't know or speculate or this and that about the Nicolaitans, don't have the wisdom to recognize who the Nicolaitans are. And believe me, you don't need to believe me, I'm just saying for emphasis, you should believe, in my opinion, that Jesus would not leave something like this as a mystery. It's very clear and in our face. It's obvious who Jesus is talking about, because it's in the name. The name Nicolaitan, and this is a fact, you can look it up. The name Nicolaitan means in Greek, ruling over the laity. Okay, now Jesus forbid teachers. There's only one teacher, as Jesus said. Jesus forbid preaching for money. But he also said, as the first warning to the disciples in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, the very first warning he said, many will come claiming to be Christ, and they will lead many people astray. Okay? The question is, what is he talking about? The word Christ is Greek for Messiah, and Messiah simply means anointed one. There are other anointed ones in the Bible that aren't referring to Lord Jesus Christ. Okay? So, the word is anointed one. Jesus said there would be many anointed ones, claiming to be anointed ones. I should emphasize claiming to be anointed ones, that will lead many people astray. Because Jesus said and forbid anointed ones. But there are many anointed ones today and throughout the centuries. Who are they? They're the ones that claim to be anointed ones. They're the ones that claim to be teachers, who call themselves pastors, priests, reverends, bishops, popes. These are the Nicolaitans that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And is he only coming to make war on the pastors, which are the problem? No. He's also coming to make war on the sycophant followers of the pastors and priests. because they are also Nicolaitans. Now, why is this all a big problem? Well, first of all, Jesus has one flock, not 45,000 different denominations. And by the way, the recent study shows that there are 45,000. That's another reason why Trump is the 45th president. Jesus doesn't like the 45,000 different denominations. There's only one flock. These 45,000 denominations wouldn't be in place were there not preaching for money, which Jesus forbid. And he forbid this because he knew that this would be the result. The one thing that Jesus got violently angry over in his first coming was over the monetization of his church. You know the story. And the thing that Jesus threatened the most was the status of the corrupt religious teachers of the day that were in place because of money. Now, Jesus knew that all of this would lead to the institutionalization, to these institutions that would institutionalize the egregious, horrible errors of all of the denominations. Because, okay, there's 45,000 denominations, and they all claim to have the truth. So, which one is it? Which one has the truth? Well, none of them do because they're all Nicolaitan. But there's some very, very outrageous, wicked deception from Satan, errors in all of the denominations that have been institutionalized through the teaching and preaching for money, and teachers, pastors. And by the way, Paul said, if someone is speaking when people assemble, which is what church is, if someone is speaking and another one is inspired to say a word, let the person who's speaking be silent. When have you ever seen that happen in a church? If someone were to stand up while a preacher is preaching and say, I've got something to say about that, that person would be immediately escorted out of the church, and everyone in the church would agree that this person needs to be ejected, and they might even be asked to never return. So, even Paul's writings in the book of Timothy that contradict the writings of Peter, John, James, and Jesus. And so if you believe that the Bible is inerrant, well, you've got something to question yourself about, because the few verses that pastors use to support pastors contradict flatly everything that Jesus was talking about, and John and Peter, regarding this subject. Okay? I will leave a link in the description box below this video, by the way, for more information. You can get a clear understanding of what I'm talking about. But anyway, the wicked deception from Satan, that is Jehovah's Witness, Catholicism, Calvinism, all of these things wouldn't be in existence had they not been institutionalized by preaching for money and passed down through the institution. Okay, so let's move on. So anyway, that's why this sign, one of countless signs God has used in his big picture of signs over the years involving Dallas. But it was also the saints that were involved in this game too, which makes it prophetic as well, talking about the church. Now, the number 19, by the way, that was the number of points scored by Dallas. And you know what I forgot to write in this write-up here, in this email thread, is that this aligns with the Tito Jackson, who was from the 19th state, the Jackson 5, and the 19 days connection to Revelation 9:11 day, which will be, by the way, judgment for the church. Because the purpose of the end times period is judgment for the church. It's a test of faith for the quote-unquote Christians. And one of the big aspects of it will be quote-unquote aliens, demons pretending to be aliens. There will be countless teachers, pastors, priests, reverends that will say that the demons are here, the aliens are here. The Pope will claim that because he's the ultimate Nicolaitan. And that will lead many people astray, just as Jesus warned. By the way, now it's more dangerous than ever to be following a pastor. Stop following your pastor. You don't need a pastor. You need the Holy Spirit, the Bible, fellowship. Jesus is your teacher. The Bible is your teacher. And it's none of their business whether you have their doctrine or not. None of their business what you believe in terms of doctrine. Okay? And anyway, so anyway, yeah, this is another 19 in these signs here. I forgot. But also the number 19 symbolizes God's perfect judgment, because the number 9 symbolizes judgment from the Bible. It's the most important number in God's big picture of signs, the number 9. And the number 10 symbolizes God's perfect order, and so hence perfect judgment. 19, 9 plus 10. Okay, so we have judgment for Dallas, which is symbolism for the Nicolaitan Church, and I've just explained all of that. So here we go. The name Alvin Kamara hints at Kamala Harris. I've known for years this guy, this player for the Saints, Alvin Kamara. I've just been waiting for the big sign from Alvin Kamara. I've speculated in a couple of minor signs, but finally we have the sign that I've been waiting for years now. Alvin Kamara hints at Kamala, because I've known since the autumn of 2020 that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, and this will be how the Antichrist, the 44th president, will become the president again. I've known that for years. So that's why I've recognized for years that Alvin Kamara. Okay, so Alvin Kamara hints at Kamala Harris, who is of Indian descent. Indiana hints at Harris's Indian descent, and Indiana is the 19th state to join the Union. On this same day, the singer in the Jackson 5 family died, and the Jacksons grew up on Jackson Street in Indiana. He was a member of the Jackson 5, and he died on the day of the attempted assassination of Trump on the 5th hole, and this is 5 plus 5 days before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis near the I-55 and I-44 highways. The I-55 connects St. Louis to Chicago, the hometown of the 44th president, who was the president during Super Bowl 44 when the Saints won. St. Louis is connected to the capital of Indiana with the I-70 highway, and the Jackson singer, who grew up in Indiana, died at the age of 70. This is an amazing paragraph. Maybe you want to rewind the video and play it again. All right. That's why 5 plus 5 days from the 5th hole and the death of the Jackson 5 member, because it's also where 5 plus 5 days later, Kamala Harris will die near the I-55 highway. Amazing. By the way, she will die in St. Louis because it'll be near where the two eclipses that crossed over each other, intersected. The second eclipse passed over Dallas. God pointed to that. Okay. Yeah. The 3 games in a row in which the Saints scored 44 points began in the 4th state against the Dirty Birds, the Atlanta Falcons, nicknamed the Dirty Birds. And Dirty Birds are described in Revelation 18, which is talking about the Cardinals in Rome. Because Rome is Mystery Babylon. They scored, and that's a fact. Okay? It's so clear from the prophecy for those that are not aware of that. They scored 47 points. 47 is the 15th prime number. And on the 15th of the month, the shooter used an AK-47 style rifle. Alvin Kamara, as in Kamala, who scored 4 touchdowns in the 44-point game, was born in Atlanta in the 4th state and attended the University of Tennessee in the 4 times 4th state. Kamala's plane will be struck by a dirty bird. Jimmy Carter will die in Plains, Georgia, in the 4th state. Marching down the field for 40 plus 40 yards hints at the geographical land feature of a plain. Plains, Georgia, hints at the tribes of the plains of Gaza that King David subdued. Jimmy Carter brokered the Camp David peace accord that gave land in Gaza to Egypt. Biggest transgression against God in Bible prophecy. Something the Antichrist will follow in the footsteps of Carter. Alvin Kamara wears jersey number 41. 41 is the 13th prime number. It is predicted that 13 days after player number 41's 4 touchdowns will be the day that Israel will bomb Iran. Iran equals 130 in Hebrew gematria, which hints at 13. Hamas also equals 130, by the way. The Jews were persecuted in Persia, which is Iran, on the 13th days of the month in the book of Esther in the Bible. Hamas controls the plains of Gaza, and Hamas equals 130 in simple English gematria. No, sorry, it's Hebrew gematria, just like Iran. The last 444 days of the 13 plus 13 plus 13th president's presidency was the 444-day Iranian hostage crisis. You see that? In other words, we're not only talking about the 44th president here, with the third game in a row where the Saints scored 44 and the Saints won Super Bowl 44 during the presidency of the 44th president, and the 4 touchdowns that began with a 40 plus 40-yard drive. We are also talking about Iran. It's all tied together here, you see. The 444-day Iranian hostage crisis. These connections reveal the day that Israel will bomb Iran, because it's 13 days later. That's why it was player number 41, because 41 is the 13th prime number. And Iran equals essentially 13. And this ties through Jimmy Carter, because he is the guy that pressured Israel with their enemy, Islam, with the Camp David peace accords, and he's like no other president known for this town that he's lived in his entire life, except when he was in the governor's mansion and the White House. He's spent his entire life in Plains, Georgia. Like no other president is known for a particular location like him. Plains, Georgia hints at the plains of Gaza, where David subdued the tribes of Gaza, the plains of Gaza. And it all comes back because Alvin Kamara is also from the 4th state. And furthermore, he attended university in the 4 times 4th state. He's the guy on this day, 13 days prior, that scored 4 touchdowns in the 44-point game. And his jersey number hints at number 13. This is all about Iran and pointed to with the 444-day Iranian hostage crisis here. It all comes together. It's so amazing. The first of the 3 games in a row in which the Saints, who won Super Bowl 44, scored 44 points was January 7th, 2024. This was 252 days before player number 41's 4 touchdowns. Iran equals 252 in English gematria. 252 also hints at 2,520, the number in the Bible in prophecy that symbolizes the period of the Antichrist. 41 is the 13th prime number, and number 41's 4 touchdowns are 13 days before Israel will bomb Iran. This 252 days is also 36 weeks. 36, since at 3 6 is 666, but also it is 6 times 6 and also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers with the 36th row, the last number is 666, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way to 36 equals 666. So this 252 days is also equal to 36 weeks exactly, and the 44th president is the Antichrist, 666, his number in Bible prophecy. And the 44th president, Antichrist, will persecute the Jews in Israel, pressuring them regarding their land, seeking to divide the land and making Jerusalem an international city, which will be what brings about the final judgment and judgment day on the world. Because the effort will be a world effort led by the Antichrists, Pope Francis and Barack Obama. Also, Tito Jackson was born 70 years exactly, 70 years and 11 months before he died. This hints at Genesis 7:11, which is the verse in which the flood destruction began. In turn, September 15th is 1,656 hours, which hints at the flood, as I explained, to the mega tsunamis, which is of course a flood on both coasts, and September 15th, 2024 is 2 + 2 + 2 days before the predicted death of Carter, who is symbolism for Methuselah, and vice versa, and the flood. It's amazing. That's why Tito Jackson died 70 years and 11 months after he was born, because this date and these signs are communicating these flood symbolism. They're revealing Carter, who is flood symbolism, and the mega tsunamis, which is flood symbolism, as in Noah's flood symbolism. Tito was the older relative of Michael Jackson, and I explained the relevance of Michael Jackson in this web of signs in this video. And Methuselah was the older relative of Noah. The name of the shooter that attempted the assassination is Ryan Ruth. Okay, Ryan is Irish for king. Ruth, as we can see from this website here, the Internet Surname Database, is a word or a name derived from Old English pre-7th century word wrath, meaning angry or fierce. It was a nickname either for somebody with a fierce temper or probably, given the robust humor of the medieval period, the reverse, in fact, a quiet person. So the name Ryan Ruth, the name of the shooter, is named King Wrath, angry. This is, of course, an allusion to the coming King of Kings and his wrath. The second coming of Lord Jesus Christ will not be like the first coming. In the second coming, the Lord is coming with his wrath and his anger, his fierce anger. He's coming to judge. He is bringing judgment. And this is appropriate. This is quite something here. This second assassination attempt of Trump at God's trumpet. This is trumpeting the coming of the second coming of the King of Kings and his wrath, Ryan Ruth. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs. which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.